There comes a moment when noise becomes unbearable, not because you suddenly dislike people, but because you can no longer hear yourself among their expectations. Conversations feel exhausting, familiar roles become restrictive, and solitude begins to seem less like an escape than a psychological necessity. Something within you is asking for enough silence to reveal what has been hidden beneath adaptation. Carl Jung believed that every personality contains a shadow, the desires, emotions, impulses, and qualities that the conscious identity refuses to recognize. These elements do not disappear when rejected. They continue influencing judgments, relationships, and emotional reactions from outside awareness. When solitude removes social distractions, the shadow often becomes more visible, sometimes through uncomfortable thoughts and feelings that seem unfamiliar but have always belonged to the personality. However, genuine shadow integration is not the same as avoiding relationships or withdrawing indefinitely. Solitude becomes transformative when it helps you recognize your projections, question the persona you perform, and accept your internal contradictions without being controlled by them. The following 4 signs may indicate that your need to be alone is not simple isolation, but part of a deeper movement towards psychological wholeness. 1. You withdraw to separate your own voice from other people's expectations. There are periods when being around other people begins to produce a strange kind of internal confusion. You may still participate in conversations, fulfill responsibilities, and behave as expected, yet feel increasingly disconnected from what you actually think. After years of adapting your language, reactions, and decisions to the people around you, it becomes difficult to identify which parts of your personality are spontaneous and which were constructed to maintain acceptance. The desire for solitude may emerge because the mind needs distance from these constant external signals. Jung described the socially adapted side of the personality as the persona. It is not inherently false or harmful. Everyone needs a persona to participate in society. It allows a person to function as a colleague, friend, family member, or responsible member of a community. The problem begins when this social identity becomes so dominant that it is mistaken for the entire personality. You may become highly skilled at being who others need you to be, while gradually losing contact with preferences and emotions that do not fit the role. This separation often happens without conscious deception. A child who receives affection for being agreeable may learn to suppress anger. Someone praised for being strong may hide vulnerability, while a person valued for generosity may feel guilty whenever they prioritize their own needs. Repeated often enough, these adaptations stop feeling like choices and become automatic patterns. Eventually, the person may sincerely believe that they never become angry, never need assistance, or never want anything that might disappoint another person. The unconscious personality does not disappear simply because certain qualities are excluded from the persona. Unexpressed anger may become chronic irritation, hidden ambition may appear as resentment toward successful people, and neglected needs may produce exhaustion in relationships. Because these reactions conflict with the conscious self-image, they can feel confusing or unjustified. Solitude reduces the pressure to maintain that image, allowing previously rejected material to enter awareness without immediately being adjusted for someone else's comfort. This explains why withdrawing can initially feel uncomfortable rather than peaceful. Without requests to answer, expectations to satisfy, or roles to perform, you may not immediately know what to do with yourself. Questions that once seemed simple become difficult. What do I enjoy when nobody is watching? Which opinions are genuinely mine? What would I choose if I did not need to explain the decision? The uncertainty reveals how thoroughly external approval may have influenced the structure of your identity. In silence, you may also notice an internal audience that continues judging you even when no one is present. You imagine how family members would react to a choice, whether friends would approve of an interest, or whether other people would consider your feelings reasonable. Their expectations have been internalized and now operate as psychological authorities. Physical distance alone does not immediately remove them, but it makes their influence easier to observe because their judgments are no longer mixed with actual conversations. Shadow integration begins when you can recognize these internalized expectations without automatically obeying or rejecting them. The goal is not to oppose everything society values simply to prove independence. Rebellion can be another form of dependence, when every choice is still organized around other people's opinions. The deeper task is to examine each expectation and decide whether it corresponds with your values, circumstances, and developing personality. Some inherited standards may remain meaningful, others may no longer deserve authority. During this process, previously hidden preferences may appear in ordinary ways. You may realize that you dislike activities you have pretended to enjoy, disagree with beliefs you repeated to preserve harmony, or need boundaries that contradict your reputation for constant availability. These discoveries can generate guilt because they threaten the stability of established relationships. Yet the guilt does not necessarily prove that the discoveries are wrong. It may simply show that the persona is losing its exclusive control over how you are allowed to exist. Healthy solitude provides a temporary environment in which these discoveries can be examined before they are expressed. Not every emotion needs to become an action, and not every suppressed desire represents an authentic direction that must be followed. Some reactions are temporary, defensive, or shaped by unresolved experiences. Reflection creates room to distinguish a durable conviction from a passing impulse. Integration requires neither blind repression nor blind expression, but the capacity to understand what an inner reaction represents. The clearest sign of this process appears when solitude eventually improves your participation in relationships. You return without needing to agree automatically, hide every inconvenient emotion, or shape yourself around each person's expectations. You may disappoint some people because clearer boundaries alter familiar dynamics, but you also become more capable of genuine closeness. When your words come from considered convictions rather than automatic adaptation, relationships no longer depend entirely on the performance of an acceptable identity. 2. Silence brings forward the traits you once rejected. Silence does not create unfamiliar emotions. It removes the distractions that kept them outside conscious attention. During ordinary life, conversations, responsibilities, entertainment, and constant stimulation can prevent you from observing what is happening internally. Once those external demands subside, feelings that seemed absent may become unexpectedly intense. Anger, envy, fear, resentment, ambition, or the desire for recognition can appear, challenging the carefully maintained image you have of yourself. These reactions are often disturbing because they contradict the qualities you consciously value. A person who identifies as generous may discover possessiveness. Someone proud of being calm may encounter considerable aggression beneath that composure. A person who considers themselves humble may recognize a powerful wish to be admired. From a Jungian perspective, these contradictions do not automatically expose hypocrisy. They reveal that the personality is broader and more complicated than the conscious identity has been willing to acknowledge. Many rejected traits were originally excluded because they threatened belonging. Families, schools, religious environments, and social groups communicate which emotions are acceptable and which must remain hidden. Sometimes this happens through direct punishment, but it can also occur through subtle reactions. Disapproval, ridicule, withdrawal of affection, or praise that rewards only one side of the personality. The individual gradually learns which qualities can be displayed safely and which must be pushed away. However, repression does not eliminate a trait. It separates that trait from conscious control while allowing it to influence behavior indirectly. Anger that cannot be admitted may appear as sarcasm, unexplained impatience, or cold withdrawal. Envy may disguise itself as moral criticism, while ambition may be expressed through constant comparison with others. Because the conscious mind refuses to recognize the original emotion, the person experiences only its indirect consequences and often attributes them entirely to external circumstances. Solitude can interrupt this pattern by making psychological contradictions more visible. Without an immediate social situation to blame, you may notice that certain reactions repeat across different relationships. The faces and circumstances change, but the emotional structure remains remarkably similar. This repetition suggests that the problem cannot be explained only by the behavior of other people. Some part of the reaction belongs to your own internal history, expectations, and unrecognized personality. Recognizing an emotion is different from endorsing every action it might encourage. Shadow integration does not mean expressing anger without restraint, obeying every impulse, or treating resentment as an unquestionable truth. It means becoming capable of saying internally that these feelings exist and deserve examination. Once an emotion is recognized, it can be interpreted, regulated, and placed in context. When it remains denied, it is more likely to influence behavior without conscious responsibility. Anger, for example, may reveal that a boundary has repeatedly been crossed, but it can also expose wounded pride or an unrealistic expectation. Envy may indicate neglected ambition, yet it may also arise from comparison and insecurity. Fear can signal genuine danger, or it can protect an identity that resists change. The purpose of reflection is not to assign one universal meaning to every emotion, but to investigate what function that emotion serves within a particular psychological pattern. Some qualities found in the shadow are not destructive at all. Confidence may be rejected by someone taught that visibility is arrogance. Assertiveness may be buried by a person rewarded for obedience, while creativity may be suppressed because it seems impractical or socially risky. The shadow, therefore, contains not only hostility and shame, but also unused strengths. Silence can reveal the energy that was sacrificed to preserve a narrow and acceptable version of the self. This encounter can produce a more realistic moral awareness. Before recognizing the shadow, it is easy to divide people into simple categories: kind or cruel, honest or deceptive, humble or arrogant. After encountering contradictory tendencies within yourself, these divisions become harder to maintain. This does not erase personal responsibility or make every behavior acceptable. Instead, it replaces the illusion of personal purity with a more mature understanding of what human beings are capable of under different pressures. The value of silence lies in making these elements available to consciousness before they govern relationships indirectly. When you can recognize resentment, ambition, fear, or envy without immediately denying or dramatizing them, you gain the possibility of responding deliberately. The shadow does not disappear through integration, nor does the personality become permanently harmonious. What changes is your relationship with these rejected traits. They become psychological information you can examine instead of hidden forces that act through you without being named. 3. You recognize in yourself what you once condemned in others. One of the most uncomfortable effects of prolonged reflection is the realization that certain qualities you strongly condemn in others also exist within you. This does not mean that you behave exactly as they do, or that every criticism is merely imagined. It means that an intense reaction can sometimes contain more than an objective judgment. It may also reveal a characteristic, desire, or vulnerability that your conscious identity refuses to recognize as its own. Jung used the concept of projection to describe the process through which unconscious qualities are perceived primarily in the external world. When a trait cannot be accepted as part of your personality, the mind becomes especially sensitive to its appearance in other people. You notice it quickly, react to it intensely, and may feel compelled to expose or condemn it. The emotion seems entirely caused by the other person, while the personal meaning of the reaction remains hidden. For example, someone who has suppressed their desire for attention may feel unusually irritated by expressive people. A person who refuses to acknowledge their own ambition may describe every successful individual as selfish or calculating. Someone who has learned to hide vulnerability may judge emotional openness as weakness. The behavior being observed may be real, but the intensity of the judgment can be amplified by a conflict that already exists within the observer. Projection protects the conscious self-image by relocating unwanted qualities. If impatience belongs only to other people, you can continue seeing yourself as endlessly tolerant. If manipulation exists only outside you, there is no need to examine the subtle ways you may influence others. This psychological arrangement provides temporary moral certainty, but it prevents self-knowledge. The rejected trait continues operating while remaining protected from examination. Solitude weakens this defense because it removes the immediate target of your reaction. When you revisit an argument without the other person present, you may begin to notice similarities between their behavior and your own. Perhaps you accuse someone of refusing to listen while you were equally determined not to reconsider your position. Perhaps you condemn their need for control while attempting to control how they understood you. Reflection exposes the symmetry that emotional conflict often conceals. This recognition can initially produce shame because it threatens the distinction between the person you believe yourself to be and the person you condemn. Yet integration does not require concluding that you are identical to those who have hurt or frustrated you. Human traits exist in different degrees, appear under different conditions, and lead to different choices. Recognizing a capacity within yourself is not the same as excusing another person's harmful conduct or abandoning necessary boundaries. The more useful question is not simply, do I also possess this trait? But how does this tendency operate through me? Control may appear as direct domination in one person and as emotional withdrawal in another. Arrogance may be expressed through obvious superiority or through the private belief that one is more morally aware than everyone else. The external forms differ, yet they may be organized around similar psychological needs. Projection can also involve positive qualities. You may idealize someone's courage, intelligence, creativity, or independence because you have not developed permission to recognize those possibilities within yourself. Excessive admiration can therefore be as revealing as intense dislike. The qualities attributed almost exclusively to another person may represent undeveloped aspects of your own personality that are waiting to be consciously cultivated. As projections weaken, relationships become more realistic. Other people are no longer required to carry everything you reject or admire about yourself. You can evaluate their behavior without turning them into symbols of complete goodness or complete corruption. This produces a more balanced form of judgment, one that remains capable of identifying dishonesty, arrogance, or manipulation, while also examining why particular behaviors affect you so deeply. Recognizing yourself in what you once condemned does not erase moral distinctions. It makes responsibility more personal. Instead of using criticism only to establish your superiority, you allow it to become information about your own psychological structure. The energy previously spent denying similarities can then be used to regulate behavior, repair mistakes, and make more conscious choices. This is one of the clearest movements toward shadow integration. What was once seen only in the outside world becomes something you are capable of recognizing and managing within yourself. 4. You return to relationships with less need to perform. The strongest evidence that solitude is contributing to shadow integration appears when you return to relationships. Isolation alone proves very little, because withdrawal can serve many different psychological functions. It can provide reflection, but it can also protect a person from criticism, vulnerability, and disagreement. The important question is not simply whether you spend time alone, but whether that time changes the way you relate to people once you are with them again. Before this process begins, relationships may depend heavily on performance. You might become agreeable around demanding people, entertaining around emotionally distant people, or endlessly competent around those who expect you to solve every problem. These responses can be so automatic that they feel like personality rather than adaptation. Instead of asking what you genuinely think or feel, you unconsciously calculate which version of yourself will preserve approval and prevent conflict. This performance is closely connected to the Jungian persona. The persona allows you to occupy social roles and communicate with people who know only part of your personality. It becomes restrictive, however, when you believe that acceptance depends on never stepping outside it. A person identified with being kind may feel unable to disagree. Someone attached to appearing intelligent may avoid admitting confusion, while a person known for strength may conceal every moment of uncertainty. When solitude makes these patterns visible, you begin to notice how much energy social performance requires. Every interaction involves monitoring your words, predicting reactions, adjusting your expression, and preventing undesirable parts of yourself from becoming visible. The exhaustion attributed to other people may therefore come partly from the effort of maintaining an edited identity. Relationships feel draining because they are experienced as continuous examinations in which the persona must always succeed. After a period of honest reflection, you may return with less willingness to perform this constant adjustment. This does not mean becoming deliberately insensitive or saying everything that enters your mind. Authenticity without consideration can become another rigid identity, especially when bluntness is used to avoid responsibility for its effects. Integration produces something more measured, the ability to communicate honestly while recognizing that other people possess their own limits, sensitivities, and perspectives. Clearer boundaries are often one of the first observable changes. You may decline requests without inventing elaborate excuses, admit when you do not have the emotional capacity to help, or refuse to participate in conversations that repeatedly violate your values. Previously, these actions may have seemed selfish because your identity depended on being available. Now you can understand that cooperation chosen freely is different from cooperation driven by fear of rejection. This change may disturb relationships organized around your former compliance. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries may interpret your new behavior as coldness, arrogance, or distance. Their reaction does not automatically prove that you are behaving correctly, but neither does it prove that you should return to the previous role. Integration requires evaluating criticism carefully, without allowing every negative response to overturn your developing sense of self. You also become less invested in appearing internally consistent at all times. A mature personality contains opposing tendencies: confidence and uncertainty, generosity and self-interest, affection and irritation, independence and the need for support. Before integration, these contradictions may feel threatening because they disrupt the perfect image presented to others. Afterward, you can acknowledge them without treating each uncomfortable emotion as evidence that your entire identity is false. This acceptance makes apologies more genuine. When your self-image depends on being morally superior, admitting a mistake can feel like psychological collapse. You may defend yourself, minimize the effect of your behavior, or redirect attention toward the other person's faults. Recognizing the shadow allows you to say that envy, pride, fear, or resentment influenced your actions without concluding that these emotions define everything you are. Responsibility becomes possible because imperfection no longer has to be hidden at all costs. At the same time, you become less likely to demand perfection from others. This does not mean tolerating dishonesty, disrespect, or repeated violations of trust. It means recognizing that another person's contradiction is not always a personal betrayal. People can care about you and still disappoint you, act generously in one situation and selfishly in another, or understand your feelings imperfectly without necessarily intending harm. The weakening of projection allows relationships to be judged by patterns and consequences rather than by idealization or sudden condemnation. Another important change is the reduced need to control how others perceive you. You can explain yourself when communication is necessary, but you no longer feel compelled to correct every misunderstanding or win every disagreement. Some people will continue interpreting you through the version of you that serves their own expectations. Attempting to manage every interpretation would require rebuilding the same persona that Solitude helped you examine. You learn to tolerate being seen incompletely without allowing other people's perceptions to become your identity. Ultimately, shadow integration returns you to relationships as a more accountable participant, not as a perfected individual. You bring your preferences, boundaries, unresolved tensions, and contradictory qualities into contact with other people without expecting them to carry what you refuse to recognize. The need to perform decreases because acceptance is no longer purchased through constant self-erasure. Solitude has fulfilled its psychological purpose when it enables you to remain connected without abandoning yourself, and to remain yourself without treating connection as a threat. Conclusion. The need for solitude does not always mean that you are rejecting the world. Sometimes it signals that the personality can no longer remain confined to the identity it created for acceptance. By separating your own voice from external expectations, observing previously rejected emotions, and recognizing your projections, you begin to understand that psychological maturity is not achieved by appearing flawless. It develops through the conscious acceptance of contradictions that were already influencing your behavior from the shadows. But integration is demonstrated through the way you return to life, not through how long you remain alone. The purpose of solitude is to make relationships more honest, to establish boundaries without unnecessary hostility, express disagreement without losing your identity, and acknowledge difficult emotions without allowing them to control your conduct. In Jungian terms, becoming whole does not mean eliminating the shadow. It means accepting responsibility for it so that what was once unconscious no longer determines your choices in silence.